My name is Chris Lane. I'm 35 years old and was married to my wife Emily for 6 years. She's 32 but could pass for someone in her mid-20s. Stunning, charming, and full of life. At least that's what I thought. We didn't have kids. I was ready, but she wasn't. "Soon, Chris, I promise," she'd say with that sugary smile that used to melt me. Our life was great, but that wasn't even the best part. It was the way she made me feel. Her kisses, the way she'd pull me in for a hug out of nowhere, the way she'd laugh at my dumb jokes. Every time I held her, I felt at peace, like the world was finally okay. I thought she felt the same. Apparently, I was a fool. Her betrayal turned my love into something cold and vengeful. People say the opposite of love is indifference. That's not true for me. It's this bone-deep rage that keeps me up at night. If she was on fire, I wouldn't even spit on her to put it out. You're probably wondering how I got here, how a devoted husband became a man calculating his wife's downfall. It started with a company Christmas party last year. Emily always dressed to impress for these things. She had this knack for turning heads, and I admit part of me liked it. I'd watch every guy in the room drool over her and think, yeah, that's my wife. That night, though, something felt off. She was wearing this slinky black dress that hugged her in all the right places, a little too much maybe. I couldn't help but wonder who she was trying to impress. As we were getting ready, I told her, "Look, Emily, these parties get wild. People drink too much and lines get crossed. Just don't let anything happen that makes me look stupid, okay?" She laughed. "Chris, come on, I love you, you know that, stop being so serious." I didn't push it. I trusted her, and that was my first mistake. When we got to the party, the first person to greet us was her boss, Evan Harris. Evan's the kind of guy who's always just this close to crossing the line, tall, confident, and full of himself. He's the VP of the company and acts like he owns the world. His wife stopped coming to these events years ago, probably sick of his antics. "Emily," he said, ignoring me completely as he took her hand. "You look stunning tonight." I wanted to knock the smug look off his face right there, but Emily just gave me her relaxed Chris glance. Evan hovered around her all night, finding excuses to touch her arm or lean in too close. I kept telling myself it was nothing. Emily wasn't like that. She'd never disrespect me like that. Would she? At some point during the night, I lost track of her. I'd been talking with some of the guys, trying to blend in and not obsess over where Emily was or who she was with, but then her friend Sophie came up to me. "Hey Chris, have you seen Emily? She was dancing with Evan earlier, but I haven't seen her for a while." Something about the way Sophie looked at me, like she knew something but didn't want to say it, made my stomach churn. I started searching for her. At first, I told myself I was just being paranoid, but then I heard muffled voices coming from one of the side rooms. A woman's voice, breathy and unmistakable. I opened the door. There she was, bent over a desk, her black dress bunched around her hips. And there he was, Evan, his smirk vanishing the second he saw me. For a moment, I just stood there frozen. My chest felt like it was caving in. "Oh my God," I said, my voice icy. "Emily, let me explain," she stammered, scrambling to pull her dress down. "You've got nothing to explain," I said coldly. "You're done. We're done." Evan straightened up, trying to recover. "Look, man, let's not overreact." I cut him off. "Shut up. You think I don't know what kind of sleaze you are? You've been sniffing around her for years, and you—" I turned to Emily, who couldn't even meet my eyes. "You let him." Evan tried to act tough, stepping toward me like he was going to intimidate me. Bad move. Before he could say another word, I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall. He wasn't so cocky then. "Listen, you piece of garbage," I growled. "You're going to regret this, not just tonight, but every single day for the rest of your miserable life." I didn't punch him. That would have been too easy. Instead, I slapped him hard over and over until his cocky smirk turned into tears. By the time I was done, he was crumpled on the floor, whimpering like the coward he was. My buddies Jake and Adam had shown up by then, probably tipped off by Sophie. They stood in the doorway, watching in stunned silence. "Get him out of here," I said, my voice flat as they dragged him out. I turned back to Emily. She was crying, mascara running down her face. For the first time since I met her, I felt absolutely nothing. "Get your coat," I told her. "We're leaving." The ride home was dead silent except for Emily's occasional sniffles. I kept my eyes on the road, my hands gripping the wheel. "Chris." They stood in the doorway watching in stunned silence. "Get him out of here," I said, my voice flat as they dragged him out. I turned back to Emily. She was crying, mascara running down her face. For the first time since I met her, I felt absolutely nothing. "Get your coat," I told her. "We're leaving." The ride home was dead silent, except for Emily's occasional sniffles. I kept my eyes on the road, my hands gripping the wheel. "Chris," she finally whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't answer. "Please, Chris, just let me explain. It was a mistake. I wasn't thinking. I love you." That word love was like a knife to the gut. "Love?" I said, my voice calm but venomous. "You don't love me, Emily. You love the attention, the excitement, the thrill of sneaking around. But me? I'm just your safety net. The guy you run back to when you're done playing your little game." "Games," she sobbed harder. "That's not true. It didn't mean anything. I was stupid. Selfish. But it didn't mean anything." I slammed on the brakes, pulling the car over to the side of the road. "It didn't mean anything?" I said, turning to face her. "You destroyed our marriage, Emily. You betrayed me in a way I'll never forget. You betrayed me publicly, and you're telling me it didn't mean anything?" She reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. "Chris, I'll do anything. Please, just give me a chance to fix this." "There's no fixing this," I said coldly. "You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." Instead of driving home, I took a detour. Emily noticed immediately. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice tinged with fear. "You'll see," I said, not bothering to look at her. 10 minutes later, I pulled up in front of a modest suburban house. The porch light was on and a car was parked in the driveway. "Chris, what is this? Who lives here?" I got out of the car without answering, walking around to her side and opening the door. "Get out," I said firmly. She hesitated, her eyes darting between me and the house. "Get out." Reluctantly, she stepped out of the car, wrapping her coat tightly around herself. I grabbed her by the arm, not hard but firmly enough to make it clear she wasn't going anywhere, and walked her to the front door. I knocked. After a few seconds, the door opened, and there she was. Rachel Harris, Evan's wife. Her face lit up with confusion and concern. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Mrs. Harris," I said, my voice polite but firm. "I'm Chris Lane. I used to work for your husband's company. May we come in?" She looked at me, then at Emily, her confusion deepening. "Is everything okay? Is Evan all right?" "Oh, Evan's fine," I said with a bitter smile. "He's just had a very eventful evening." Rachel stepped aside, clearly wary, and motioned for us to enter. Emily looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor, but I tightened my grip on her arm and led her into the living room. "Please have a seat," Rachel said, glancing nervously at Emily. "No, thank you," I said. "This won't take long. My wife has something she needs to tell you." Emily's eyes widened in panic. "Chris, please don't tell her," I said sharply. Rachel's gaze flicked between the two of us, suspicion dawning on her face. "What's going on?" I looked at Emily, my expression cold and unyielding. "Go ahead, Emily. Tell her what you were doing tonight, or do you need me to do it for you?" Emily's lower lip trembled. I say it," I barked. "I was sleeping with your husband," she blurted out, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking." Rachel's face went pale, her eyes narrowing into slits. "How long?" Emily hesitated, but I wasn't about to let her off the hook. "Tell her, Emily, the truth. All of it." "For years," she whispered, barely audible. Rachel let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "For years," she repeated, "for years of lies?" For She turned to me, her face a mixture of fury and pain. "And you just found out tonight?" I nodded. Walked in on them at the office party. For a moment the room was silent. Then Rachel stood up, walked over to Emily, and slapped her so hard she nearly fell over. "You filthy," she spat. "You can have him. I don't want that cheating bastard anymore." Jack Holden. I used to believe in love. I thought it was a bond that couldn't be broken. But Lily shattered that illusion in a way I'll never forget. She didn't just cheat on me. She disrespected me, humiliated me, and made a fool of everything we had built. And Tim? He wasn't just my wife's boss. He was a man who thought he could take everything from me without consequence. But he learned the hard way that no one gets to walk away unscathed. I thought about what my life could have been if I had just turned a blind eye. If I had accepted her apology, taken her back, and kept my dignity intact. But I couldn't. The betrayal ran too deep. I wanted to make sure they both paid the price for what they did, and it's been a year since everything ended and I've moved on. I'm healing, slowly, but surely. Therapy's been helping me deal with the anger and pain, but every now and then, I remember the cold rage I felt that night. I remember the way Lily begged me for forgiveness, how Tim was reduced to nothing. And it brings a small sense of satisfaction, knowing that they'll never forget what they did. As for the future, I don't know what it holds. I don't know if I'll ever trust again, but I'm learning to trust myself, and that's enough. I'll never settle for less than I deserve. I'll never let anyone make me feel small again. And as for Lily, she may have destroyed the life we had together, but in doing so, she gave me something more valuable. A second chance at happiness. And I'll make sure I never forget that. Months passed, and life kept moving forward. I found peace in the small things, the quiet moments, the routine of a life without the weight of betrayal hanging over me. I started taking care of myself, focusing on my career, and rediscovering who I was outside of my marriage. I never expected to be in this place, but I learned to embrace it. I started dating again. Nothing serious. Just casual dates, learning to trust again, even if just a little. But every time I met someone new, I found myself comparing them to Lily. Not in the way you might think, but in the way I realized how much she had taken from me. She had made me believe that love could fix anything. But the truth was, love doesn't always conquer all. Sometimes it's the lies, the deceit, and the broken promises that shape you into the person you're meant to become. And in my case, it made me stronger. I could never get back the years I spent with Lily, the dreams we shared, or the life I thought we were building. But I realized I didn't need to. I had my own story to write now, one that didn't include betrayal, one that didn't include her. People often ask if I ever think about reconciliation. They ask if I'd ever go back to Lily if she asked for forgiveness again. The answer is simple. No. She lost me the moment she chose someone else over us. She made her choice, and now she has to live with it. But it's not about revenge. It's about respect. It's about knowing my worth. And it's about understanding that sometimes the best way to move forward is to let go. As for Tim, well, I made sure his life would never be the same. The lawsuit, the humiliation, the public disgrace. He got exactly what he deserved. It wasn't just about the money or the legal victories. It was about him understanding the consequences of his actions and knowing that someone was always watching, someone who wouldn't let him get away with it. In the end, both of them paid the price. But I did more than that. I learned to forgive myself for being naive. I stopped blaming myself for their actions, and I learned to love myself again.